Jumping right back into the action on today's show, we're going to get to part two of our Week 10 game picks. And where we left off yesterday, we went through six of the games yesterday in the first half there of the Sunday slate. Now we get to the rest of them, concluding with Sunday Night Football. And as always, starting with the top left hand side of your screen, we have the Bills traveling to Indianapolis to take on the Colts, obviously. And, the Colts in this game, really, I think the story will be just Joe Flacco and that offense really trying to pick themselves up from the offensive performance that we saw against the Vikings. Credit to the Vikings for playing a great game. They certainly needed it on defense, but you have to think there's more in the tank that Joe Flacco can provide for this team. He threw for the lowest amount of passing yards he did all season in their last game, and I know there's more. He's capable of doing more, despite what some may think of him maybe being too old or not mobile enough. He is definitely capable of playing better than that, and he's going to need to play better than that because they're hosting the Buffalo Bills, who come in with a 4-game win streak, and whereas Indianapolis has lost their last 2 games. And not only that, but Michael Pittman is not looking great. If I was to make the decision on whether or not he could play, he hasn't really practiced that much this week, and their starting center Ryan Kelly was placed on the IR. So those are two huge pieces to their team that they might be without both of them against this Bills team. And even with that, the Bills also could be without Keon Coleman. These wrist injuries are killing the Bills wide receivers. Keon Coleman hasn't practiced that much either this week. I don't know if he's likely to play. And, whereas Amari Cooper also dealing with a wrist injury, it looks like he's more likely to play after missing last week's game. So we'll see where that is come Sunday. But, this matchup, for me, it doesn't really bode well for the Colts, just because it's not great for them because of that pass rush and an immobile Joe Flacco a little bit here, with no Michael Pittman out there. It's not a great combination. You're missing your center, so that's always a little bit awkward. So because of that, I'm going to go with the Bills. I think they're really almost in the middle of their stride. They're almost in the middle of reaching their full potential. I still think they have a few ways to go with cleaning some things up, but it really looks like they're really figuring out what they want to do, who they are this year, and I feel like it's just going to be too much for the Colts. I feel like that offense might let us down a little bit more. If Michael Pittman is certainly not able to play, I don't like the Colts' chances, so give me the Bills in this first game. Then we have a battle of two first-round quarterbacks, right? Drake May is facing off and traveling to Chicago to take on the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams. And both of these rookie quarterbacks haven't had the best of times so far. At least their teams haven't. And both of them are coming off of pretty tough losses last week. The Bears getting blown out by 20 points on the road in Arizona. And the Patriots losing a one-score game in overtime to the Tennessee Titans, 20-17. Both young quarterbacks, while I have mentioned they haven't really had the greatest of seasons, right, to like a Jaden Daniels level, obviously, or like a CJ Stroud, they have, to be fair, shown very good moments in this season where Caleb's had a big game against the Jaguars, or he had a pretty decent game against the Ravens as well. And also Drake May, just in last week, he made an amazing play to send it into overtime. He's had other good moments as well once he was named the starter. So there's been some good, some bad, like you would expect with young players. And while Drake May, in his own situation, right, you might look at it and think like, wow, like he's really working with a lot less, right? The receivers are much worse, honestly, than the Bears, and the offensive line, both of them aren't great, but you could go to either side there. The running situation just about the same, but the Patriots are really at the beginning of this rebuild, whereas the Bears are a few steps ahead. And while Drake May might be working with less in his own situation, you might look at Caleb Williams and think, yeah, he might have more weapons, but also he didn't have. I don't like saying the luxury, but just the the better option of sitting behind somebody and learning and getting out some of the wrinkles. Drake May was able to do that with Jacoby Brissett there. Caleb was just kind of thrown out there as the first overall pick while he still needed to learn some things. So we've seen that growth along the way. So both of them have had very different situations and very different environments. And in this game, between both of them, I feel like that difference in development is going to make the difference in this game. So because of that, I'm going to go with the Bears. They are working with more. They should be playing better. They have been playing better. They have a better record than the Patriots. And I think being at home is going to help settle them down a little bit. They've had a tough road trip here for the last couple games. So give me the Bears. I bet it'll still be close, but I'm going to go with the Bears to just edge out the New England Patriots. Then another game here, very fascinating because the Titans travel to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers, and we have two very tough, stingy, underrated defenses, in my opinion. Tennessee, I just mentioned Denard Wilson and the job he's doing coming over from the Ravens to Tennessee, and they are the number one team against the pass in terms of yards allowed and total yards allowed per game. And the Chargers are right there with them. The Chargers are actually only allowing 12 points per game, remarkably. So they're also doing things very well on that side of the ball. The integration of Jim Harbaugh for the Chargers, and like I said, the integration of Denard Wilson for the Titans has really worked out great for both of these defenses. But the Titans' offense is really where they find most of their struggles. It's kind of hard also to believe that with Brian Callahan being there and him and all the success he had in Cincinnati, it's not very characteristic of him to have these struggles. But it is what it is now for the Titans. They're only scoring 17 points per game, which is 27th in the NFL. They're second to last in passing yards per game. They're only averaging 170 yards per game. And this game should be the return of Will Levis. And depending on how you feel about that, I think just based on what we've seen a lot more struggle from Will Levis. So I don't know how that's going to bode with them going on the road to face a very good defense. It doesn't seem like the greatest recipe for success in my opinion. So because of that, I'm going to go with the Chargers. They just feel a lot more steady, a lot more safe to me. They've won 3 of their last 5 games, and they've been competitive in all of their losses. There's been no blowout losses or anything like that. They've all been one-score games, except one game where they lost by 10 points to the Steelers. So to me, the Chargers are definitely progressing a lot quicker, and they're a few steps ahead of the Titans. So give me the Chargers in this one. Then moving over to the right side, this one's pretty easy. The Eagles are going to win. The Cowboys, even if they had Micah, Deron Bland, CeeDee, DeMarcus Lawrence, Dak playing, if I didn't say him, even if they had all those guys, I still would pick the Eagles. It might be a little bit closer, but it's going to be Cooper Rush in this game. A.J. Brown should be all right after suffering that injury against the Jaguars. He should be good to go. Micah Parsons on the positive side for the Cowboys. He's expected to be ready to return, but again, Dak Prescott, that is the biggest news that looms large over everything. He's not going to be able to play for a couple weeks, so it's going to be too much for the Cowboys, obviously, and I'm going to go with the Eagles here to keep pace with the Washington Commanders. Then, looking at the last 2 games here, very interesting because the Jets and the Cardinals are in very weird situations, right? Weird because the Cardinals sit at the number 4 spot in the playoffs, where you could have never convinced anybody that the Cardinals were going to be in this spot heading into the second half of the year. Also, this is a must-win game for them because a loss, depending on how the Rams do and the 49ers, it could completely knock them out of the playoffs. So as long as they keep winning and beating divisional opponents, they could be the 4th seed, and that's remarkable for this season for the Cardinals. So they have that incentive to win. And also for the Jets, right? 1, definitely 2 losses for them would pretty much kill all of their playoff chances. So they're going to travel across the country to go to Arizona. And they did impress me in their last game, seeing the the breakout game of Devontae Adams or another great game by Garrett Wilson, it finally looked like what they envisioned, but they're going to have to win most of their games, and it's going to have to start with this one. And if they don't win this one, they're going to have games, I think, still against the Bills, the Seahawks, and a couple more tough teams. So they need to win this game for that reason. So that's why I'm going to go with the Jets, just because I feel like they're going to be a bit more desperate. Right now, the Cardinals are almost playing with house money. Honestly, they probably didn't expect to be here. So the Jets had Super Bowl expectations. So because of that, the Jets have to win this game, and I'm going to go with them. Then we get to Sunday Night Football here for the last one, and it's I think it's more favored to the Lions, rightly so, and I wouldn't have expected that at the beginning of this year, but the Texans are dealing with some pretty bad injuries to Nico Collins. He's expected back, but Stephon Diggs obviously down for the year. The Texans lost their last game and are trying to avoid their first losing streak of this season. So if they were to lose this game, they'd be on a 2-game losing streak, which is pretty uncharacteristic for the expectations that we had on them. And they could be potentially without Will Anderson. And if that's the case, it's going to make my pick of the Lions winning this game even more certain, because the Lions are doing everything right. It feels like they could do no wrong. They don't take any wrong steps or anything like that. So if they're going to be without Will Anderson and already without Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs, and most worrying of all, their offensive line is really not playing very good for the Texans. And now, if Zadarius Smith plays, he's probably not going to play a lot, but if he does play, it's going to improve their pass rush even more. And with a very all-right offensive line, it's not going to be too great for CJ and the receivers, not getting open quick enough and stuff like that. The Detroit Lions defense, who is still performing very well despite losing Aiden Hutchinson, it feels like it's too one-sided to even go with the Texans. So I'm going to go with the Lions here. They do everything right, and it's hard to pinpoint anything that I'm worried about, honestly. But that's that's the level that they're playing at right now. So I'm going to go with the Lions to win again on Sunday Night Football, and that's all of the picks that we're going to have for Week 10. Hopefully, we're as accurate as possible. We'll mention it a little bit more on Monday when we return. But for right now, we're going to go to another break in the show, and when we return after our next break, we're going to talk some more about the Lions, actually, and their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, a big head coaching candidate in 2025. There are some reports of what he could be looking for and how he could approach those potential head coaching opportunities this offseason. So we're going to discuss that, and I'll give some of the teams that I think he would be a great fit for in 2025 if he so chooses. We're going to get to that in just a few moments.